Hi guys, how you doing? This video is a follow-up to one I recorded a little while ago on straight versus round blows in classical pugilism. There was a little bit of debate about the fact that it seemed that there was something contradictory in that video, that some of the commentators at the time were suggesting that straight blows were better because they were more powerful, yet round blows generated more power. And I thought it would be sensible to at least make an effort to explain this apparent contradiction. From my perspective, there is no contradiction here. A straight blow is by far the most powerful that can be done safely. What we're looking at specifically isn't how much kinetic energy can we generate within a move. What we're looking at is how much kinetic energy can we generate and transfer to our opponent. Now, obviously we can increase that by protecting the hand. If we wrap the hand and then put a glove on it, then we've effectively made this a much stronger structure that can withstand a lot more force, and therefore we can generate more force and transfer it to our opponent. But if we're not going to do that, if we're not going to wrap the hand and compress the soft tissues around the bones in order to hold them in position and prevent them from being damaged, if we're not going to wear gloves that disperse the energy through the hand over a much broader surface, we have to look at other methods of transferring that power. Now, the first thing to say is that there's going to be an upper limit, because obviously this is physically and structurally more resistant to force than this. The hand's an incredibly complex structure. It's got a lot of little bones in it. The bones are all held together by a connection of ligaments. There's soft tissues there. There are tiny muscles within the hand. There are a lot of nerves, a lot of blood vessels, and it's very easy to damage it. As a hand surgeon I used to work with always used to say, there's an awful lot of clockwork in a hand, and if you damage one bit, none of it works properly anymore. And he's absolutely right. So we've got to be really careful in how we use this as a weapon. So obviously, as I was saying, there's an upper limit to the amount of power that we can throw through it. But we can really head towards that upper limit, and we can get there by using that power in a very specific manner. The thing we need to look at is the metacarpals are these long bones here. They're not actually long, it's just a classification of bone. It means they've got a shaft and two extremities. I won't bore you with the details of bone classification, but the metacarpals are long bones, which means they have a shaft, a core that's long and thin. They're classically bone-shaped. They've got a lumpy bit at each end and a long thin bit in the middle. Now, against a force that compresses down the length of that bone, they're incredibly strong. Against a force that goes through that bone in a transverse or somewhat diagonal foot manner, they're not very strong at all. They can snap. Effectively, if you get a piece of chalk and you try and compress it, you'll struggle. But if you get a piece of chalk and you try and snap it, it's really very easy. And that's exactly the same with the long bones in our hand, with our metacarpals. And if you look at an x-ray of the hand, you'll see that they get progressively smaller towards the little finger. So what we need to do is try and put the force down these bones in a straight line into the arm. And the bones of the arm are also long bones. They have a shaft and two extremities. So we're trying to get the force to go through them in a straight line as well, which is why we're looking at contacting with a straight arm, and we're not looking at contacting with a bent arm, because at that point the force comes down the arm and carries on in this direction, and potentially, if there's a lot of force there, disrupts the joint. That point at which the force and the arm are no longer in alignment is at risk of damage. So when somebody says straight blows are more powerful, they're not saying you can generate more energy with a straight blow. You can generate more energy with a big, wild, round, swinging blow that comes from way back here all the way around. And you see that a lot in MMA. You watch the UFC. And at the beginning of the first round, people will start off like 1, 2, and they'll throw nice, tight, controlled combinations. And as soon as they start to get tired, or as soon as their adrenaline spikes, they'll start throwing really big, wild round blows. They can get away with that to a degree because they're wearing gloves. However, hand injuries are still very common in the UFC, in other MMA promotions, and also in boxing. This fracture of the distal end, distal simply means furthest away from the body, so the bit at the end here, the fracture of the distal end of the fifth metacarpal. Have I been saying metatarsals? I do it all the time. You wouldn't have thought that I actually taught this stuff for the British Orthopaedic Association. If I've been saying metatarsals, ignore that. They're not metatarsals, they're in your feet. They're metacarpals. This distal end of the fifth metacarpal is where it tends to break. That's the weakest point. If you throw a round blow, the force hits the hand and it goes through in that direction. And it comes sideways at a bit of a diagonal through the end of this long bone here, and it snaps the end off. That's known as a boxer's fracture. What tends to happen is the force bends that down, and often it rotates it round. And what that means is you end up with a much shorter knuckle at the end, and if you bring your hands in, let me see if I can get this right so you can see, like this, what you'll find is that this finger here rotates around underneath those to a degree. My hand's a bit of a mess. I've broken it a few times and I never did anything about it. If you think you might have broken your hand, for goodness sake, go get it looked at. If you've got a rotational deformity of the bone, it needs fixing. It causes all sorts of trouble if your little finger rolls underneath your hand. You've got to kind of, but anyway, that's by the by. So you can generate force safely using straight blows. So when somebody says a straight blow is more powerful, what it means is it's possible to generate more power in a safe manner to you than it is with a round blow. It's not saying that you can generate more energy, it's saying you can transfer that energy in a safe way to your opponent. This is a huge subject, and I strongly suspect that I've still only scratched the surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link down below to an ebook I wrote a while ago when I was first making the decision to try and teach classical pugilism to people other than those in my club, to try and spread the word, if you like. I wrote a short ebook and I stuck it up for sale. It's been hugely popular. If you haven't got it, check it out. It's only a few pounds and all the money goes towards helping me, well, buy food, buy stuff for recording videos, and also spread the word of classical pugilism. And I've completely lost track of where I was going there, so never mind. So there's the link. Check it out. It's a good read, and it goes into a great detail about the difference between classical pugilism and traditional martial arts and boxing. It's kind of from a self-defense point of view, but not fully. Kind of from the point of view of, if you are actually going to use this stuff for real, what do you need to know about the differences and why it is that classical pugilism is something you should understand. Anyway, I'll shut up now. I hope this has been of some use to you. I hope it's clarified the issue to a degree, and I'll see you soon. Take care, guys.